We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Office of Technology Commercialization's March webinar, How Does the OTC Restructuring Benefit You? A little housekeeping items. We want to make sure you know that we are recording this so that we can put it on our YouTube channel and share it with all the registrants. We do have a live transcription enabled, so you can choose that by clicking on the button below. And we ask that you keep your mics muted and your cameras off for the recording. And if you have questions, please put those in the chat. You can put those to everyone or specifically to me, Jackie Green. And that will we'll ask all those questions at the end of the presentation. I'm going to kick it off with Tanya Phillips, who will do an introduction and talk about OTC's new restructuring. Tanya?
All right, thank you, Jackie. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Our team is very excited for this opportunity to speak to you today about the restructuring of our office and how it will benefit you. OTC is part of a larger umbrella organization called UK Innovate, which is led by Ian McClure, the Associate Vice President for Research and Innovation and Economic Impact. UK Innovate works to move ideas into the world faster, where they can make the greatest social and economic impact possible. So within UK Innovate, OTC works alongside two new areas. The first one is UK Innovation Connect, which provides dedicated resources to support industry and the private sector partnerships for research and innovation. And then the second one is Innovation Training, which manages innovation and entrepreneurial training programs for UK faculty, staff, and students. You have the opportunity to learn more about UK Innovate in an upcoming webinar. So let's get back to OTC. So our mission within OTC is to advance innovation that makes a difference. And we work with faculty and staff across campus to assess, protect, and license innovations. And we continue to raise awareness of entrepreneurship and co-create startups from innovations, both on campus and in the community. All of this makes us an important part of Kentucky's emerging innovation ecosystem. So on the next slide, I want to give you a visual of OTC's organizational structure. So if I had showed you this slide about 6 years ago, we would only have 6 people on it. OTC has grown to 16 FTEs with numerous graduate and undergraduate students providing support for the work that we do. And we have basically grown to support the increased research and innovation across UK and the increase of startups in the community. We employ an investment bank organizational model where common operational functions are grouped together. So this allows us, or allows each area of OTC to capitalize on their expertise and efficiencies, and thereby providing more value for the innovators that we work with. So as a broad overview, to the far left, you'll see the Intellectual Property Development Group. This is led by Matt Upton, an intellectual property attorney. Moving to the right, we have the Contracts Team, led by Eric Caslin, and these are all attorneys who specialize in drafting agreements utilized by both OTC and the university. Next, we have the Commercialization Team, led by Eric Hartman, who has deep expertise in commercialization of innovations and was a startup founder himself. Our newest area is social innovation, led by Dr. Serenity Wright, who's an expert in the field and who was recently hired to build and lead this effort. So the team leads are going to introduce the work of their particular area and how they work with innovators. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Matt Upton.
Yeah, so as Tanya mentioned, our divisions are kind of broke up. So I lead the intellectual property development team. And essentially what that means is every innovation that comes out of the University of Kentucky should cross my desk at some point. So we're made up of various individuals with different specialties. So as Tanya mentioned, I am a patent attorney. I practiced for 15 years before coming to the University of Kentucky. I was in private practice. And what we do is we get the invention disclosures from our innovators, look at them, and determine how best to protect those assets, whether it's copyrights, patents, whatever it may be, and then schedule meetings with those innovators to let them know what's out there and what the best avenue forward is. Helping in this, we have Sabrina Darnell, who's our IP compliant, intellectual property finance and compliance coordinator. And essentially, there's a lot of details that need to be handled on the back end once we receive an invention disclosure. So when that happens, if it's federally funded, Sabrina's in charge of making sure we're in compliance with all of our federal reporting requirements. And she's also looking through any of our licenses to make sure that our licensee are in compliance with any financial terms that are in those agreements. So she's making sure you get paid for your invention if it's fortunate to be licensed. In addition to that, Sabrina does a lot of the back end with our database as well and assists in training all of our newer employees in how to use our internal database systems. Then we have Jessica Davis, who's in charge of inputting information into that database to make sure all the teams can be up and running in the same database and all the information we require is there. So all the teams that you saw on the kind of hierarchy chart flows into Jessica and she inputs it so that it can be handled properly. In addition, Jessica would also tell you she keeps me straight and make sure deadlines are hit. So we just got done with the 3-hour meeting to make sure we're sending out emails. In addition, we're also hiring an intellectual property associate. And essentially that individual will assist me. When Tanya mentioned that our team years ago was 6 people, our office was receiving between 40 and 50 invention disclosures a year. And now we're right around 100 to a little over that every year. So if you can imagine, IP takes a long time to get. So on any given year, we're probably working in our department on 400 to 500 matters. And that's a lot of time. And what we want to do is be less reactive and more proactive to help our innovators and make sure we have strong IP. So we're hiring another individual that will likely take over some technology areas so we can better serve our UK innovators. In addition, not pictured, we do have OTC fellows that are one of the initial contact points for our innovators. So invention disclosure comes in, and then these OTC fellows are tasked with conducting patent landscape searches, doing some initial market assessments of the invention, and then having a meeting with the innovators to kind of explain where their technology sits in the related field and what other technologies are out there. In addition, in those meetings, we also bring in other members of our team, specifically our commercialization managers, so that right from the beginning, if it is a commercializable invention, we're working towards that, right? Where is the market? What is the need? If it's more on the social innovation side, Dr. Wright would be joining in those meetings to see how best we can help disseminate that knowledge and get it out through non-traditional means and help our innovators along. We additionally have a student IP assistant that assists Sabrina in some of the bookkeeping type aspects of the databases and the compliance work. But that is essentially the IPD team in a nutshell on what we do.
You're on mute, Serenity.
Yep, got it. It's amazing. You'd think we'd have this figured out by now, but that's fine. I am the inaugural leader for social innovation, as Tanya mentioned, and I know it says team at the top, and I know if you looked at that lovely color-coded picture, it looks like I'm out there all by myself. But what's important for me, for you all to understand, is that everybody in that image to the left of me is part of my team. And that's one of the greatest assets that we have as an office, is that I don't have to be the IP expert. I actually think Matt would prefer I didn't discuss IP most days, but he is part of my team. Eric Caslin, that you'll hear from in a little bit, is also part of my team. Eric Hartman and all the commercialization managers are also part of my team, right? So it is about leveraging the assets of the entire office to support social innovation on campus. Social innovation is not new at the University of Kentucky. We have researchers who are social inventors, social innovators. They've been doing social innovation research. This is not new. What's new is the intentional acknowledgement by the institution that the supports need to be different, that the infrastructure needs to be a little bit different to help elevate and empower not just the researchers, but the solutions that they're coming up with in their through their research as well. So when we talk about building an ecosystem, Tanya's first slide talked about an ecosystem for social innovation, an ecosystem that's around sustained social impact, which is what we focus on, sustained social impact, social justice, and the common good. It's not just a luxury, but it's a necessity in this particular space. So if we're truly going to work towards innovations that disrupt systems and are change makers within our communities, then we need to be intentional about how we build and leverage those ecosystems. So there's three main components to what I do. One is faculty research, and that's helping our researchers, as Matt said, with scaling your impact, disseminating the information. How can I help you get your solution to a larger audience? And how can we talk about what your long-term goals are for your innovation and for your research? The other is experiential learning. So how are we teaching our students and embedding content knowledge, theoretical concepts around social innovation in our coursework so that students are learning about social impact, social justice, and the common good through every content lens. And then the third piece is within community engagement. How am I helping our faculty reach more members of our larger community, but also how am I bringing community-based solutions to our faculty as well? And so it's really important that we think about, why is this unit important? Why is this new space important for us to be talking about? Is again, it's about helping the campus scale solutions, broaden that impact, really leverage and enhance the dissemination of the solutions that we are coming up with as a campus into the larger community. Don't get scared off that I live in the technology commercialization office. It's not always about commercialization or paying the, charging the end user. That's not what this is about. Again, this is about making sure anybody and everybody who needs access to your solution can get that access. So if you don't know if it's for you, or you don't know if you want to be involved, let's just have a conversation. Let's talk about it and see how we can partner and do this together. But as I mentioned, Eric Hartman and the whole commercialization team, I am very deeply embedded and partnered with that group as well, because it may not always be clear whether or not the solution, the innovation, is social innovation or it's not. And so we spend a lot of time talking about how can we as an office, again, best help leverage and support and empower the researcher in the space. So I will turn it over to Eric Hartman to let him talk about the commercialization team.
All right, thank you, Serenity. So hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce my team to you and talk a bit about what we do. So the commercialization group is really broken into two distinct teams. So we have the Launch Blue team, which is led by Laura Halligan with the help of Aaron Shea and Kenzie Dickens. They are running the Launch Blue program as a national startup accelerator program that we run out of the University of Kentucky and here in Lexington. And so we have had other webinars, we'll have other webinars in the future about LaunchBlue. The focus today is primarily on the campus side, but I will come back to the relationship between LaunchBlue and what we're doing with the campus side commercialization team. So our campus side commercialization team, there's 4 commercialization managers that are on that team. Holly Clark is the newest member of that team in the role of senior commercialization manager, and she serves the therapeutics and biologic space as part of the life sciences focus of our work. Liz Knapp is a commercialization manager that is in the engineering and physical sciences spaces. Emmanuel Smith is a commercialization manager that covers the College of Agriculture as well as the Center for Applied Energy Research. And Kendra Stencil is a commercialization manager that covers medical devices, diagnostics, health IT, and a whole range of other life sciences inventions and technologies. So with that, I want to dive in just a little bit into how our team works and the role that our team has, and specifically why we feel like the reorganization of OTC from the commercialization team's perspective is really a benefit to you. So the first thing about the reorg that we really like and that we're super excited about is that the decision about what to do and the pathway that your technology is going to take from a commercialization perspective is not made right from the beginning at the point of disclosure of your IP. So now all of the technologies are going through a common pathway where we work to develop and de-risk those technologies, to understand those technologies, to understand the markets, to understand what is really needed to develop that technology. And then once we get to the right point, we can make the decision of, do we need to pursue a startup, or is this a candidate for a license to a corporate? So those types of decisions being able to be delayed to a later point in the process, what we find is that that's really better for the technology because it lets the technology drive that decision and inform that decision. So that's one of the things that we're most excited about. So we really focus from the time of disclosure, we really focus on working with Matt and his team on trying to understand what is the best path forward for this technology. What can we do not only from an IP space, but what are the things that will be needed for that technology to reach its potential in the marketplace. So as we've mentioned, our teams work very, very closely together. And so one of the things that we're most excited about is the commercialization manager team. You will meet and engage with them. If you haven't prior to disclosure, you will for sure very soon after disclosure begin working with the commercialization managers. Matt and his team will do an initial IP assessment and sit down with you as the innovator, and our commercialization managers will be in those meetings and will be helping to think about commercialization and assessment of your technology from the very beginning. They'll begin to work with Jackie and her team. So Jackie is not only the MC of our webinar today, but she also leads our marketing department. So the commercialization managers work hand in hand with Jackie to develop marketing abstracts for your technology that we can put those out on various platforms. We can send them out directly to potential licensees. We can use those to get feedback and to test different hypotheses and assumptions around these technologies. So all of that works in concert with us working hand in hand with Matt and his team so that we're developing the technology and letting that technology development inform the IP process and vice versa. We also work hand in hand with Eric Caslin and his team on agreements as we get to the point of being ready to move this technology out of the university and into some external party, whether that be a corporate, whether it be a startup, or something in between. So we'll work with Eric Caslin and his team to figure out what's the best set of agreements that we can use to really position that technology for success once it leaves the university. And then finally, as Serenity's mentioned, we work very closely with her and her burgeoning team that will be developing all of the social innovations. And as she said, there's a lot of overlap. And we're still working to define all of those things as well. As I mentioned, we have the LaunchBlue Accelerator program. We have 2 different primary programs that run under LaunchBlue. That one is For later stage startup companies that are developed and established and they have some traction in the marketplace. And again, that's a national program. We also have another program through LaunchBlue called the UXL program, which is a university-based, very early stage technology development program. And that UXL program, our commercialization managers act as section leads and coaches in that program to help you as the innovator learn about the process, learn about your technology, learn about what that commercialization process is going to look like. The UXL program is prior to making the decision about whether this is going to be a startup pathway or a licensing pathway. So it's agnostic from that perspective, and it's also technology agnostic. So we're really taking any technology in, and our goal is to help you and to work hand in hand with you as you're trying to learn, and we're trying to learn what that path is for your technology. So finally, I'll just conclude my remarks today by just saying our goal with this restructure, and our goal as an office is to have a transparent approach. We want to work to really make our processes transparent and the decision processes around the technologies as transparent as we possibly can. And we really want to let the technology and what's in the best interest of the technology drive all the processes that we do as we're assessing and looking to develop your technology further. So with that, I'll pass off to Eric Castle.
All right, thank you, Eric Hartman. I'm the other Eric Caslin, Associate Director for our contracts team, and together with two senior contracts coordinators, Ali Yankee and Natalie McCormick, the three of us make up the contracts team. Our goal is to effectively and efficiently negotiate, prepare, execute a number of various types of OTC related contracts, and to lead in monitoring and compliance of existing contracts once those are fully executed, while working closely with our IP development and commercialization teams. So what I would do specifically, as I mentioned, a range of different types of contracts relating to protection and commercialization of UK innovations, but these primarily include license and option agreements, of which over the last few years, I think we're averaging around 30 per year. A large volume of non-disclosure agreements. I think last year we were somewhere between 400 and 500. Natalie McCormick handles all of the non-disclosure agreements. Of course, there's material transfer agreements, and last year's numbers somewhere between 600 and 700, and each year an increasing number of data use agreements, or DUAs, 120 of those last year. Ali Yankee handles all of the material transfer agreements and data use agreements for the office. In addition, we do interinstitutional agreements, or IIAs, which are used when typically when two or more universities jointly own intellectual property, and these will set forth the agreement between the institutions as to which of the two or three or more will take lead in pursuing patent protection, as well as with commercialization, and sets forth responsibilities for how associated expenses, patent expenses, will be shared between the institutions, as well as how any potential license income will be distributed. And in addition, of course, we handle some other miscellaneous agreements relating to commercialization of UK innovations that don't neatly fit into one of those earlier mentioned agreement types. So why is what we do important to UK innovators and other stakeholders? As a contracts team, we take pride in carefully reviewing, reviewing and drafting all of our agreements on behalf of the OTC to protect the university's intellectual property interest. And in each agreement, we strive to clearly set forth the parties' understanding and expectations for the benefit of everyone involved, and hopefully avoid disagreement or confusion down the road. And that's the contracts team. So I'll turn it over now, I think, to Jackie to see if there are any questions.
Thank you, everyone. Just a reminder, if you have questions, to please put those in chat. You can put them to everyone or to me specifically, Jackie Green. We do have some questions. Tanya, the first question is for you. Can you talk a little bit about your role as director now? You're getting close to a year in soon, and what the catalyst for this restructure was.
Thank you, Jackie. My role as director is to oversee the operations of OTC. So the various teams that you saw in the organizational chart and that the people that spoke here report to me. The impetus in the change over a year ago was that Ian McClure took a new position as an associate VP for research. And so I stepped into Ian's role as director for OTC. As I said, I manage and kind of oversee all the different areas that were mentioned here today.
Thank you, Tanya. And what really drove restructuring how OTC was previously before you took over as director?
Okay. Before we didn't have specialty areas. I mentioned that we have an investment bank operational model where we rely on people's expertise in the various different areas of intellectual property, commercialization, and contracts. And when we were a smaller office, there was really one or two people doing all of those things. So it made it hard for them to really be experts at any one of those things. So what we've tried to do now is, as I mentioned, is to have people work in their area of expertise, which in turn helps the innovators. They get the best information on how to move forward with commercialization, with how to move forward with patenting, and how to move forward with options and licensing and those kinds of things. So we feel like this is going to provide us or allow us to provide the best service that we can to our innovators across campus.
Thank you. We have a question. I am new to innovation and doing research. If I'm not sure who I should talk to in OTC, where should I start?
Well, you could start at different points, and it really doesn't matter how you come into our office as long as you come to our office and talk to us. So there's Matt, if you're trying to figure out if you have something that's ready to be disclosed or you're not sure, you could reach out to Matt and talk to him. If you're in a particular college area, you could reach out to the particular commercialization manager in your area. If it's, Eric mentioned that, we cover medicine, pharmacy, engineering, all those different, so you can reach out to the person that represents that area. Or if it's Serenity, it might be social work or design or the humanities. So you could come in anyway. And you go to our website, everybody's information is on there, our emails, our phone numbers. You can reach out to us however you feel comfortable, but just reach out to us.
Wonderful. This question is for Eric Caslin. You talked about agreements. If I'm just sharing an agreement with a friend of mine at another university, do I need to get any type of agreement before I talk to them?
I'm sorry, if you're just sharing what with the colleague at the other university?
My research to
Sharing
look
your
at.
research. I would say if it's research that you have already, if you've completed it, in other words, if you want to share data or materials that resulted from the research, then yes, I would suggest an NDA or MTA in those instances. But if you simply want to talk with a colleague at another university about perhaps submitting a grant proposal together for a proposed collaboration, then in that case, no, I don't think, well, an NDA, yeah, wouldn't hurt, but I don't know that it would be necessary in every instance.
Thank you, Eric. Question for Serenity. Serenity, can you talk a little bit more about some examples of what social innovation is compared to what would go through the normal channels at OTC?
Yeah, absolutely. Did everybody notice how quickly I unmuted so that I didn't make the same mistake twice? We're learning. This is all about learning, friends, and learning together. I wouldn't so much say that it's about whether or not the innovation is different, but the intent, who the population is trying to serve, right? Who are we trying to get at? Sometimes it is in a different innovation. Maybe it's a comic book, maybe it's a curriculum or a training or a workshop. It could be a farm to table restaurant. It could be a mobile food truck. It could look like a number of different things, but some things that fall in similar categories sit around apps or true technologies, and what is the actual content inside of that technology, or who is that technology meant to serve, right? That can be the critical difference. But I think that's why Eric Hartman, sorry, and I talk about we are a hand-holding team, right? We do things together because it's not always a clear line for how things are different or where things are different. It's more about how do we best serve the researcher, how do we best elevate the innovation, and it's typically doesn't mean it's me or one of the other commercialization managers, but it's both and which one of us is driving the bus, right? I often tell the commercialization managers, you're Batman, I'm Robin, and so that's kind of how we operate in the superhero world in that sense.
Thank you, Serenity. Don't mute yourself. Can you also talk about what are some of the things you hope to see a year from now working in the social innovation area?
Yeah, I hope to hear social innovation being talked about across campus as an acknowledged and consistent base for how we think about our research and how we think about our innovations. I hope to have several innovations in the pipeline, if not already several that we can highlight and showcase to the public in terms of this is what we're doing. I hope that we see a movement amongst our students to talk more about how they can be involved or how they can think about their content from a lens of social impact, social justice, and the common good, right? And acknowledging that every content area has a space and an obligation to play inside of social innovation, right? There's a role for everybody there. So my biggest piece of excitement, the thing I hope to see the most, is how the narrative about social innovation changes on campus. Instead of something that's more kind of bubbling under the surface, that we are riding the tidal wave and leading this space as an institution.
Fantastic. Eric Hartman, can you talk about UXL and when an innovator would be primed to go through that program?
Sure, absolutely. So UXL is a program that we offer twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. It's a 12-week program. We meet every other week in a cohort type of a meeting, and then on alternating weeks we do coaching sessions. The goal of the program and when it's most appropriate is at the earliest stage. So what we would love to happen is when a technology comes in and gets disclosed to the office, and we're in these earliest times of trying to figure out, what is this technology? What could this technology be? Who might want to use this technology? What would need to happen in order for this technology to move forward? That we can use the UXL program as a way to work with you hand in hand to gain that understanding about that technology. And so that's when and why and how and what it would entail. There is, I will just add really quickly, there's a UXL incubator program that comes afterwards on a invitation basis only. And so for those that go through the UXL program and are successful at working through the UXL program, you'd be invited to participate in the incubator, where we continue to work hand in hand with you for an additional 6 to 12 months after that, as you're really applying the things that you've learned in the UXL program, and we continue to work with you to explore different opportunities that may be available for your technology.
Wonderful. Thanks, Eric. Matt Upton, can you please talk about, if a researcher is just starting, their thoughts about research, whether they should disclose or have a meeting with you, or where should they start?
Well, I mean, if they're just starting, they should definitely get a hold of us. We have a couple of things we can do to help out that innovator. One is we can go ahead and do a patent landscape search for them to let them kind of see, even before they start and get into the heart of their research, what's already out there. In addition, we can also involve the commercialization team at that point to see, what does the market want, right? It's a lot easier to commercialize something, or don't even think about commercialize. It's a lot easier to get a product into the hands of the people you're trying to help if it meets a need that's already out there. And that's where the commercialization team can come in, is help identifying that need that may be in line with your research or just adjacent, that you could then direct that to, and that patent landscape search would help out. If you're early in the process, you don't necessarily need to do an invention disclosure, because at that point, there's not really an invention to disclose, but our office can still help out at that early phase.
Great. Tanya, we have a question about whether OTC comes to departments to talk about the work that OTC does.
The short answer is yes, and we love to do that kind of presentation to departments. So anytime we can present before departments, talk about what we do, bring the appropriate people along, depending on the department area and what the interest is and how much time we have. Sometimes we get 10 minutes, sometimes we get 30 minutes or longer. We're always excited about getting out across campus and meeting folks and trying to provide some education on the commercialization process and how we can help our innovators.
Thank you. It looks like we don't have any more questions, but I would like to ask each of you, starting with Eric Hartman, to say anything that maybe hasn't been said that you really want our innovators to know as they come to work with each of your teams and the office as a whole.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. I think the one comment that I would make, and this is just dovetailing off of what Matt shared just a few moments ago and some of Serenity's comments earlier in the webinar. Our goal when we talk about commercialization is really about the technology reaching its maximum impact in the market. So whatever area of the university you're coming from, there's someone outside the university that has the potential to benefit, whether that's a patient, whether that's a company, whether that's a consumer, and whatever the format is of how that technology gets quote unquote commercialized, what we're trying to do is move that technology into the point where it can benefit society. And so that's our goal. And we're looking for what is the best way for your technology to be able to make that transition. And regardless of what the technology is, it almost always needs to happen outside the university. And so our goal of what we're trying to do is figure out how best to navigate that transition from taking the basic science research that's been done within the context of the university and then moving that technology, translating that technology out of the university where it can take those next steps to get into the hands of consumers.
Thank you, Eric. Matt, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, I made the Serenity mistake. I started talking before I unmuted. I think I just want to echo what Eric said as far as how our team is set up. I think everyone always has this conception or misconception now that our office has always been concerned with making money, doing things. That's not it at all. And I think Eric's term that, maximum impact for our innovations, whatever form that takes, is really our goal, right? We know that our researchers a lot of times are inventing, developing things, coming up with new ideas to have an impact on society, and genuinely to help people, right? And that's our goal, right? We're all UK employees at the end of the day. We're all working towards this same goal of getting the innovations that are developed here at the University of Kentucky into the hands of the people that need them. And we just want to be a partner with you in helping that come to pass, instead of just constantly seeing money signs and things like that. Whatever form that takes, we want to be here to help you accomplish it.
Thank you. Serenity?
Yeah, I'll enhance that a little bit further and say, two of my top 5 things that I love most and that I enjoy most are hugs and snacks. And the way I think about our office or building an ecosystem is like a great big hug, right? Like we're just here to be supportive. We're here to provide help. We're here to hold you up when you're frustrated about things. We're here to be your friend during this process. And if hugs are not for you, there's always snacks. Who doesn't love snacks, right? And so in my head, it looks like sushi rolls, right? There's all these different elements, all these different parts, but it comes together in this nice little circle of various levels, and is something that you can enjoy, right? And there's different varieties of that. So, but the important part is we're here for you and we're here to help you.
Thank you, Serenity. Eric Caslin?
I think I would just echo what Tanya mentioned earlier in response to the question about who to reach out to in our office is a starting point. If a researcher isn't sure who to contact within our office, and I would emphasize any one of us. Unlike a lot of other university tech transfer offices where they might have what's known as a cradle to grave model, meaning certain departments, perhaps in the College of Engineering, would have one contact in their tech transfer office for everything from the point of submitting an invention report to having it reviewed to working with outside patent counsel to marketing it to industry and negotiating license agreements, everything, one person. And so that makes it very simple. Here, I like the reorg where we're specializing in our individual areas of expertise. But having said that, anytime a researcher reaches out, we can always point them in the right direction if we're not the appropriate individual within the OTC team to respond.
Thank you, Eric. And Tanya?
All right. Well, I want to mention, if I can dovetail off the Serenity's hugs and snacks, one way we provide that for the innovators is a yearly program called Patent Palooza, where we celebrate innovation on campus. So we give our innovators big hugs and we have lots of snacks and other libations. And so this is where we recognize people who have disclosed, who have gotten licenses based on their technology and started companies and that kind of thing. It's just a really fun event. And I think the tentative date, Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, is November the 10th. So if you'll just kind of mark your calendar, we'll look forward to seeing you there.
Okay, I will correct you. It's September the 22nd.
Totally wrong. Okay.
You went back
I'm
to
thinking about UK Win,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
another, if I can mention that also. So UK Win is also an annual program we do for university women innovators. And so it's a way to celebrate the female innovators on our campus and give them big hugs and kudos for what they do and try to actually spur more innovation from our female innovators and founders on campus.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. Really appreciate you coming on and talking about the restructuring and your individual roles. I thank everyone for joining us, and we hope you'll join us on April the 26th for our April OTC webinar. Eric talked a little bit about his team, but you will have the opportunity to meet each of his team members and learn more about how they can help you through the commercialization process. We will be posting this recording on our YouTube channel, and you will also get an email with the link, and we hope to see you in April. Thank you, everyone.